Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I would like to speak about projections of hope. And also how when we look at the word love and the word like, I feel there is, you can say they lead to one another, but I would say there is an important difference between the two. And a difference that I hadn't noticed till recently. I would say that we have phrases like loving the moment, and we have phrases of liking something in the moment. How many people on this planet have ever said, I love my life, or I love life? People don't say I like life, It's an all or nothing kind of ordeal, I find. Anyways, these are words, of course. Words can be used in multiple ways. Words are not conceptually bound if they can be connected to other concepts. I would say that when I look at human evolution, human development, what I notice is that there was silent behavior. Literally, there was just a chunk of rock in the middle of space. Of course, it's so far back we can't tell. Even our theories on the Big Bang and the origin of our universe, these are based on background background radiation, I believe. And the idea is we're looking at the temperature of our universe and guessing what happened to it. But if we look at just there being silence and movement, that means there's one thing we know. There was movement and there was space before we were born. Now, space, as far as the human mind is concerned, is the absence of what is formed in it. That means it's like a person drawing two circles and drawing one circle and drawing another circle around that. And it's like the space is between two circles. It's between two designs. That means we can say space is a hallucination of different designs. That means the smaller circle has a shape, the bigger circle has a shape, but it is the space in between them that separates them. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that we were objects. We were objects moving. We were objects moving not in accordance to a conscious individual choice and free will. That means there was no language, there was no knowledge, there was knowing. Direct experiential knowing, but there was no knowledge as we speak of it today. The eyes were the only teacher, but then the eyes started to notice the separation of just one event. That means imagine a being opening their eyes with a personality. Let's say you the first time a human being is an individual to himself consciously. The person opens their eyes and they notice it's all one event. That means if you stripped away the depth, the dimensions, the space, you would just see lines and color. Every moment is a line and color if you don't choose to notice the space. Do you know? That means if there was no concept of space, we are literally living in a screen. But because it's 3 dimensions of space, there is depth to it and we can notice. We can notice the space between the words of matter. So, unconscious movement. This unconscious movement became an unconscious individual. So I would say we have had an awareness of being separate from the earth way before we were separate to ourselves from the earth. From an unconscious world, there arose an unconscious self. That unconscious self became a conscious self, and now all that conscious self can do is discover its consciousness in the world. So when it comes to love, it's about how we are being before anything. And like would be how we are doing before we're being. That means when for example, mother or father loves their child, that love surpasses just what the child does. It's not just the behavior of the child that can change its being. It's like who the child is to the parent, for example, is a component of their being. So anybody who can, in a simple way, accept how existence is existing, that means in a strange way, the mystical urge to transcend the world is like pretty much a being that wasn't comfortable. When it comes to being, the deepest lessons in life are there. You know, it may be that people may feel, experience is more important, actually going through the obstacle course of the karma, the journey of the moment. But I am telling you, some of the most profound and insightful moments where man discovers the nature of his own mind is a field prior to the ideology of his own being, or whatever he does. It's as if in the middle of any action, doesn't matter if you're washing dishes, it doesn't matter if you're signing papers, in the president's house. It's one of those things where whatever anybody does, without being, there is no doing. That means if I don't consider before I speak that in my inner realms I'm on a stage, then it's as if I am not being what I want to do. And any desire usually is a suggestion that you're already being what you want in your inner realms. It's just in the outer realms it isn't. When it comes to life force, that means life is not just people. It is not just the ideas that are walking in the minds of people. Life is being here. And you know how we hear sentences nowadays where people are like, don't just love others, you gotta love yourself first. Love yourself, people. It's as if Leo Tolstoy, this incredible Russian philosopher, he wrote this letter, and this letter was called Bethink Yourselves. Literally, he was shouting it, as if bethink yourselves, like as if reconsider who you are again. That was Leo Tolstoy's message, but in this modern world, I would say it's love yourselves instead of bethink yourselves. Learn to love yourself again. Which means learn to look at your own ways of being prior to what you do defining how you're being. This doesn't mean the way you're being is good and bad. The creature is conditioned in a very massive linguistic simulation that won't let go of the individual, and it's not something that it's like a sort of like, oh my God, I got an ego, I'm gonna stay in karma. Honestly, what it is that nature, its greatest teaching of how it's being is silent. I will say this. I've been talking for many years, but I've also been keeping it in mind this whole time. The poet Rumi has this quote where he says, "Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation." That means when it comes to truth, it is being. You don't need words for it. Anytime you add a word, it separates. This is why you see in a lot of meditative contexts around the world, people are just sitting quietly in a room. Because what else can this creature do? It's so poetically, believe it or not, cute that we as creatures can either move or be still. That's the game in the outer realms. In the outer realms, there is no, I would say, believe it or not, there is no success and victory on a design level. It's just how much you're aware you are being before you do things, and when you do things, how much you're aware of what will be. That means it's as if there was this idea from Socrates, they call it the sieve of Socrates. And a sieve is like, I'm pretty sure people know what a sieve is like. Think of it as a filter, but for vegetables, like, you know, like. The sieve of Socrates is pretty much Socrates is saying that before anybody on this planet should speak, they should, what they want to say should go through three filters. Is it kind? Is it true? And is it necessary? What can I say? We are snapshots inside a film, trying to treat as if one frame in the film is the whole film. It's like a two-dimensional being looked at a three-dimensional phenomena and all it saw was just squares. It didn't see the cube. A square looked at a cube and only saw squares, but a cube looked at a cube and saw a cube, saw many squares. How you are being, I would say, suggests the love you have for the world, because it's a very instant. I said it in one talk, every living human being, it's impossible to be conditioned as an individual in a world and not have a principal universal philosophy. That means even though we say there have been philosophers on the planet, but if every person on the planet somehow the depth of their eyes and what they saw and what they felt this world was shared, that would become its own philosophy. Because even though we human beings agree to similar things, we can never 100% agree, because our eyes start from different worlds, yet we find ourselves in the same. You know, for me, it's as if we look at the ideological warfare, the language wars, how human beings have just fought over sound. It's heavy. It's like, why did 85 million people die in the world wars? Because language was out of control. Because people's inner realms felt like gods while the outer realm was still ungodly. And what I mean by that is like, it's like it's like a rabbit going to a bunch of turtles and telling the turtle, okay, we have built a civilization for rabbits, but we're all turtles. The speed, let me shift into this gear. It's the speed of how we live as a thought does not correlate to the proper speed that is required to maintain the biology. Biology is like driving at 50 miles per hour to maintain the biology, but the mind, if it was to truly pursue only an inner realm analysis of the whole moment, the mind doesn't have speed limits. The mind can burst hilariously. What I mean by that is that in some sense energy is always there. Imagine every living human being's intelligence to be a valve. Imagine like a kitchen sink valve, you know, like the tap. And so once you open it, the water flows. So we human beings, our sensory perception, in some sense, denies the unknowledge of our being through the specific knowledge of what we do. The world shapes us pretty much before we can wonder even what shape is. For me, philosophy was just getting out of a crowded room of every sound I had heard before. That means I think the philosophical mind goes into two dimensions, two phases. First, it's as if, why is the known here? Then it goes to, why is the unknown here? Why is gravity here? There is so much to this world that could transition out of individual meaning. That means for me, there was a time my joy as a human being, my joy was limited to just what I do. That means if I did something, it would make me happy. If I didn't do something, I would get sad for a long time. But then it changed to a way where I was like, what can energy do in an energetic universe? It's everywhere. Deep down behind our eyes, we are the whole universe laughing in the world. To be practical means we have to instantly find reality. I would say there are some people, I would call them cobra mystics. They don't waste the time that never existed. Deep down, there is a story that every multidimensional being has to accept. That means just like, let me say what I mean by that. Just like a person, let's say an old person has to hold the rails of like the stairs and walk down. For a multidimensional being that it has always been non-local to itself, locality needs a reference. So we literally have to have an illusion, so endless children go into this illusion and are able to wake up as themselves. You know, in philosophy, it's not all about just getting rid of the illusion. In certain, you can say schools of philosophy, they believe maintaining the illusion is the truest thing you can do. That means there's some human beings that for them, it's not like nirvana is like a hidden exit. For them, nature was never mistaken, man was. So when they go to see what man is a thought considered. Man is considered as an I thought. Like I-thought, a thought of an I, of a me, of a sense of self. So when the mystics went and saw the sense of self, it was literally like a drop that was fearing evaporation. Imagine an ice cube thrown in a river, right? That ice cube is like fearing melting. No, I'm gonna die, no! And the ice cube melts, but as it melts, energy cannot die. First law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can change from one form to another. That means what we say is death is the changing of one form considered as life. But if it in some sense dissolves into an elemental position, where just like a person in, let's say, a snowy mountain, suddenly, as if they shout the truth, and the avalanche begins, the avalanche of the lifetime. The true karma of the person starts charging at them like a bull. I have found that when I wanted what I liked, it was as if I was driving without my heart. I was driving my brain without my heart, without the heart space active, in a sense. But I would say that's the power of love. Love is from the peak of the mountain coming to the bottom of the mountain. Do you know? That means it cannot lose. That means, imagine we were wondering about an unknown figure. Is this unknown figure gonna win or lose? Then we realize the unknown figure is victory itself. It cannot lose. It was born to be the archetype. From a very long linguistic slumber, the species is like, whoa, we're not everything, we're not any of what we have thought so far. How we are being also suggests how the world is being, because how we are being is a response to the stimulus of the environment. It's as if a person can feel sad, and that sadness could have nothing to do with them. You know, there's some children who, I've experienced this maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, when I was very young and I would see someone else crying, I would also, it was like my psychology would mirror. Suddenly the empathy would occur, because the brain is seeing body language that it can fathom if it mimicked to itself. You know what the brain is? The brain is like what consciousness has asked the question from, and the brain is giving an answer. But the consciousness now is asking the question, what is the brain? So imagine the brain is not talking about itself. The brain is talking about what is outside of itself. Just let's entertain this analogy for a moment. So if the brain is just talking about what it is not, what is outside of itself, now imagine the conscious being, the Atman, pretty much the soul, being like, hey mind, you seem to have a lot of opinions on the world. What's your opinion on yourself? And the mind's like, oh my god, the soul is asking me what am I? You know? And what the mind will say is, I am your humble cosmic servant. You see, the idea of service is not right or wrong after some point. Human beings are just motion and movement, honestly. That means it's like the same way you can say, a nihilist says, oh man, we're all hallucinations of electromagnetic fields, we're hallucinations of, the periodic table is hallucinating a personality right now, you know? So it's very easy through the materialistic perspective to just take the easy way out and be like, it means nothing, man, of course, you know? So the issue with that nihilism is that nihilism can be accessed in anything. I could just say right now, the world, there's no such thing as personalities, there's no such thing even as atoms, there is only lines and color. I could totally declare that everything is a hallucination of color and lines. Do you see? So it's so easy to put the whole cosmic story in a box and then smash the box or throw the box away. Reality has to have a decency, and we have experienced perhaps decency from a three-dimensional, metaphorically speaking, three-dimensional space to a two-dimensional space, for example. Right now, we need to realize, we have realized we're completely three-dimensional. It's like we've built a civilization for 2D creatures, but we're actually 3D. So we have cubic minds, but we're living in a square civilization for now. Because people feel they have to be only one square, rather than a cube, which is like different dimensions, even different angles. That means there's a view some people have, you can say, of parallel universes. Like, oh man, in one reality, my tea is cold. In another reality, parallel universe, I'm drinking hot tea. You know? But one can also say that this is a linear view of parallel universes. What if parallel universes, each parallel universe was a line, and these lines were connected to make a right angle? So what if when a person is, for example, we think a person is just a person, but a person is one side of the cube. That means your identity, your beliefs, your ideology, the story of creaturehood and history that we tell ourselves, all of these are 1/6 of what is actually going on. The story of human life is the tip of the iceberg of what is actually here, dressed as human language, dressed in human language. If there is a little chance that we surpass individualism, that would totally mean there is no death. The moment we realize the eyes of the mind are open, regardless of what happens to the sight of the body. Man must not fear the dark in the outer realms, and man must not fear the dark in the inner realms. I can't tell you how many moments I've had in this life where I've gone into this sort of silence, in intuitive silence. And in that intuitive silence, it's as if there is no self, there is no world, there is just the sound of my breathing and this blank piece of paper. Imagine, just a blank space. Imagine blank space and the sound of your breathing. And if you can simply remain as that, you will be astonished how all language runs towards you to live. You see, we don't treat ideas as living beings. But if we did, language, I could tell you, in some sense, the spirit of knowledge becomes your ally. When you don't disrespect its brother, the unknown, its sibling, the unknown. In a dualistic world, there is no such thing as one side of the coin only. There has never been good people, there has never been bad people, there's been a Venn diagram though. I feel it's about time the species stops entertaining just one Earth. There is an objective Earth and there's a subjective Earth. The subjective Earth is how each person, based on their unique positioning in the space-time continuum, sees the whole thing as a subject. A person cannot know the system they are in until they see how all the individual parts in the system are being the overall expression of the system. So that means if we went into a company, and let's say we were doing a company analysis, just very simple, just looking at a company, we can't tell the efficiency and we can't understand the company from one department, you know? So that's the thing, that we are actually a system a known system inside an unknown system, and it's so hard to even call it an unknown system because the moment it's unknown, there is something we don't see. That means you can call it empty space, you can say the vastness of the universe, but what the edge of the universe is to the human being is a veil. That means there are veils in the outer realms and there are veils in the inner realms. You know, deep down, I think every true philosopher knows. They just feel it. That the world needs to be led by novelty. That means if let's say I don't know, 20 years from now or whenever, if somebody comes, if I see a human being, just a second. There we go. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start actually from a totally new approach. I'm going to say that let's look at life as a game. Most people, their investments and their energy, even you can say that one of the superior states that a human being can exist in is playfulness. Now this playfulness, there is conditional playfulness. That means the state of being of the person is based on what happens in their environment. That means it's as if like a person is sitting on a comfortable chair, but unless the environment says, hey man, you're sitting on a comfortable chair, the person won't notice it because the person is not looking through their eyes. Many people are looking through their biological eyes, but they're not looking through the eyes of their free will. That's something that life wakes you up to at some point. So So existence is this one silent event, and experience is endlessly in every conscious moment generating a game-like relationship with the world. That means our likes and dislikes, those are our objectives as a human being, really. We don't realize it, you know. You can't be a human being, and it's just the nature of reality, I feel. You can't be something and be conscious of what you are and not use that extra space of being conscious to add something. So life is a game. In Vedic thought, they would call it lila. A more specific term would be a play. So what that means is, regardless of who people are, what we are, it's a play of elemental forces. Now, these elemental forces, they're kind of oscillating between consciousness and unconsciousness, and in conscious moments, we are highly individualized. In unconscious moments, it's as if our existence is no longer dependent on our experience. That means it's like when I sleep, it's as if like the computer is still running, but the computer screen is turned off. The conscious interface with the world is turned off in deep sleep. In dream state, it is strangely turned on, you know? So what it means is, it's like, this is a very strange analogy, but existence is the hardware, experience is the software. In the conscious waking state, the hardware has to be on in order for the software to make sense. But in the dream state, the software seems to be working on its own. That means in a dream, your mind is making your body. Your body's in the bed chilling, you know, but it's sleeping. But in the dream state, you're a body. So I would say a dream is an out of physical body experience, literally. You still have you have an image-based body in the inner realms. In these games of life and death, we can say each game is a system imposed. That means what's happening is inside a system, the brain is endlessly generating itself, reinventing itself in the moment. I would say the most enlightening question on this planet is, what am I doing? But there is quotations around the I. What am I doing? The I thought. What is the ego even doing in the moment? That means a person can give a value to something as an object very easily, but to give a proper value to a subject means to see all dimensions of it, and then in accordance to the overall view, or as much of the overall view you could accumulate, you make the best decision possible. Sometimes I feel my conscious attention is like a king, and my sensory perception are like the generals of this king. And the generals are reporting what they see, but it's not vocally. That means you can have someone explain to you a sunset, you could see a sunset. You know, you can have philosophies on truth, or you can experience truth. There's some people, I would say, on this planet who you see it in India a lot, where they are illiterate geniuses, I would say. But their genius is not in how language can be a deck of cards properly shuffled. Their genius is that they have allowed themselves to see the rawness of what being is. So technically, all of life is a game of continuity of what is conscious. That means if you're not conscious of something, you can't do even anything. That means if the person is looking for the remote controller of the TV, and they're sitting on the couch and they're looking around, there's like, where could have the remote controller have gone, you know? And suddenly they realize they've been sitting on it. You see, so as sometimes in life, there are certain advancements in the inner realms that you can't seek outside. And this really is where life blesses the being with dimensions of its own solitude. A civilization that can't walk, or I would say it this way, a human being that can't walk alone most likely can't walk with others. That means if a human being cannot unconditionally be or unconditionally do, what you do is endlessly left to different circumstances. When I look at every day I have woken up on this planet and lived, it's been a game. I've reanimated as a different player. The same being, the same attention doesn't have, attention is not an object to change, but really Excuse me, there was an interruption. What I'm trying to say with all of this is that we are inside an singular existential event. Because we go on and off, we switch on and off between different states of attention, we can't be the same thing. So even though one existential event, existentially we're equal, experientially we never can be. Experientially we each occupy a unique part of this existence. We are like a symphony of nature's most advanced technology. We need to be not just taught how to be a human being. I feel we need to learn how to be human, and we need to learn from our being. The whole effort on love was very peculiar to me. Love is of course very important. I would say it is the most important glue of civilization. But I wondered why. Why is it from all the religious traditions, even though they have some sort of supernatural dimension in common, do you know? But they also all say the same sort of path, where you're like, the person's like, through a love that makes you realize the individual and the collective are inseparable, the person on the path of truth realizes they were truth walking back to itself. So the player in the game can become the game, can remain as the player, or the being can move beyond the human being. Like, we could have totally called ourselves any other word other than human. Do you know? So to take language that is overlaid over objects seriously is at the same time. The human being, the human part is known, the being is unknown. The being is the collective unconscious, the dream of the collective unconscious, and the human is the individual consciousness. That means 3 options, or I would say 4 options in this realm. Either we are individuals, either we are a collective, either we are not here, either we are beyond here. Aside from these 4, I can't fathom how else language can move. These are the dimensions that circle around duality, where language is born in the dualistic dimension. If you were nothing, you wouldn't need language. If you were a singular being, if everything was some oneness of a universal organism, you wouldn't need language. And if reality was beyond, things were moving faster than the speed of light, we wouldn't need language. Language is limited by light. The limits of language are the limits of light. Because our language is how we extracted and we transformed an object into a subject. We made ourselves into a mask that a mask. It's like it's like an animal started to wear a mask from another dimension. It's as if our mind is from another dimension, our body is from this dimension. So we cannot just do something that satisfies the body, and we can't just do something that satisfies the mind. This may be an odd statement, but a person has to challenge their own mind. And when I say challenge your own mind, I don't mean like inspire, be inspired or whatever. I'm saying you spar as the present memory of who you are with all the memories that have connected to you, all the phenomenology you have perceived so far. It's as if the world is made of films, and beyond the cultural dimension, true philosophy, the true philosophical battles are taking place. We are a creature like a Russian doll, and the dolls are like the stories. Now, what also differentiates between just liking something and loving something. Someone once told me something so incredible about love. They said that love is something you can't choose. It's either you have it or you don't. You can't act, you know? You can't act it. It's either there or it isn't. Either the being cares or the being doesn't, you know? Either the 2 unique karmic moments are called or whatnot, you know? So what does that mean? That means if the brain was an antenna, love is a very rare signal. You know, true love. That means for some people, they can't use the word love everything. It's like, oh my God, this iced cappuccino, I love it. Oh my God, because love is something. It's like the suddenly that rare night where back in the day in the village, the kid was getting water from a well at midnight and suddenly looked at the full moon and suddenly saw a phoenix with like bright yellow flames flying in the sky. You know, it's like a rare transmission. Now, liking is different though. I feel liking is more from expression. It's not reception based. It's more like you like what you how do I say? And of course this is biased in accordance to my personality, but it's as if when we like something, it's the only one, it's a emotion. like it's like love is like a fourth dimensional signal transmission, and liking things is like a two-dimensional transition. And in the middle of accepting the medium, there you see the small and the large, and the fear of the small makes you go towards the large, and the love of the large makes you not fear the small. They would say, what is the difference between the Bhakti yogi in comparison, the Bhakti yogi that goes the path of love compared to the Raja yogi that goes the path of knowledge, the Karma yogi that goes the path of work, and the Jnana yogi that goes the path of meditation? What did the being who accessed I don't want to say true love, but truth's love, you know? The Bhakti yogi upon the recognition that it's one universal activity, one universal intelligent activity, and through direct experience of the witness, realizes this world was not by it, for it. That means it's as if the Bhakti yogi is the smartest, because the Bhakti yogi realizes they are a guest. They are a guest in the universe's house. The universe decides. I'm just a podcaster, you know. The universe decides what it wants. So then the Bhakti yogi, another metaphor was as if like God comes and holds the hand of the Bhakti yogi, and through the divinity of love, you're already at your destination. But for the Raja yogi and the Karma yogi, the Raja yogi is like pretty much a Karma yogi in the inner realms. Raziel in the chat section shares a very interesting quote attributed to Friedrich Nietzsche. There's a false notion, how can someone help others if they can't help themselves? Supposing I have the key to your chains, why should our locks be the same? You see, the point is not, you can never help anyone. Galileo, before Friedrich Nietzsche, had figured this out. Galileo, I would say, is one of the greatest teachers, because he said the essence of what it is, that you can never teach anyone anything. It's not possible. You can only make them realize it from within themselves, because they are the mover of their moment. If they don't want to move towards the knowing, they can never know it. You know? So we have honestly grown from. It's as if if people were meant to help each other in the way that they only help themselves, there is no world there. Like, mean, honestly, you can't love something until you also notice how it's being there, right? A person can't even know anything if they don't look at how it's being there in the moment. And after you look at something, it's like that's just one view, and the object of concentration for the single pointedness of mind, that object of concentration is like the center of the circle, endless degrees. That means there is nothing in this world that can, like, because we are a system, we look at things systematically. So at some point, anything that's meaningless can be related to meaning. It's just like exploring uncharted territory. You know, nobody's been there before, but when you go, you notice it could have been. And not that it could have been, you notice it is. That's the power of mysticism. You're exploring not for, even say, a true self. It's like the true self of the universal activity. Imagine a hypothetical situation where a person suddenly found an audience with God, you know, or let's say they found themselves going to heaven or whatnot, and some abode, and there it was as if the person's looking at the ultimate God, for example. And the person, God says, you have done well, what do you want? And the person's like, I just want to see from your point of view the world. And God is there looking silent. Then God, imagine, starts laughing. And God says, what if you already have? What if you already are? You see, this is not saying man is God. Those are words that you can choose to cherish in whatever way your psychology likes. But when it comes to the reality of what was the message was the keeping, like the geometry behind language. I'm telling you, all books are like complex geometrical shapes. Just layers of complex geometrical shapes. That means, I'm telling you, it's there is no story. Geometry was in the room before language was. So geometry is more of a, I would say, a divine language. They would say Sanskrit is the language of the light beings, the glowing beings, is the language of the glowing beings, Sanskrit. But I would say geometry is the language of being, pure being. Our existence really already knows what to do. Existence, you can't do anything about it. It's just like how things are before there's any opinion on it. But when it comes to the game of the experience and how a named child becomes a character in a mission of a story, like that's the fascination of how from just an elemental level personality emerged, that even though there is evolution, it's like there's no doubt about that, but there is a question. Why did we become a subject to ourselves? Why? We look at all the other animals on this planet and they have not come to this sophistication, you know? I don't see you know, penguins opening up nightclubs, you know, lions building skyscrapers. It's as if like, or birds building skyscrapers. It's as if it's like this creature had access to something. Now, whether this something was poetically divine intervention, you know, or I don't know, some extraterrestrial thing, or there's some views where stardust from another planet, like an intelligent particle from another planet, like dust lifted up from that planet and came to our planet. There's so many ways that we can tell the story, but in the middle of our storytelling, then the soul begins actually starting to remember itself and not tremble to awaken. You see, there is something that we have, I would say, I don't like where civilization, its attention is now. Because we are trying to become more fragile and thinking that's, look at our comfort, look at our luxury. But if there was literally in 200 years an extraterrestrial invasion, do you know how easy it would be for just an invisible alien to manipulate a species that still thinks their thoughts and words? I hope to see the day where the leaders of nations are like, oh my God, we never knew there would come a need, an actual outer realm need to invest in philosophers. Because really what it is, it's all about how far the eyes can see. The philosopher, I'll tell you this, the psychologist has given itself the psychologist compared to the scientist has given itself more freedom. The philosopher compared to the psychologist has given itself more freedom. Beyond the philosopher, the mystic has given itself more freedom. Beyond the mystic, there is no mystic, there is only freedom. It's like, no way! We thought knowledge had a peak. We didn't realize it's all going to be, collective experience. And can you imagine, like, bees in a beehive suddenly having egos? You know? If bees had egos, they'd never be able to make the beehive. But because they don't have egos and they listen to their nature, it would be as if human beings, rather than seeking instructions from books, seek the instructions, seek the direct experiential revelation. That means it's as if the concept, even, I would say from a theological angle, that there is revelation means there was something that was in the unknown and it became known. But guess what? Every moment of life, the concept of exploration is revelation. So you see, it's as if it's not just about how did the message get here? It's also like, how are we seeing this message? That means for me, it's hilarious. Human beings, we have this idea that we can never be clones. We can't be clones. It's impossible. We may act, but we can never be clones. And so it's like, imagine we have a symphony with 8 billion different unique instruments never before seen on this planet waiting to be played, and suddenly before the symphony somebody's like, no, destroy all these unique instruments, and like a majority of these unique instruments, and make him look like these 5 kinds of instruments. So we got rid of, let's say, all the flutes because we only wanted drums, we got rid of all the pianos because we only wanted the guitar. You see, so in reality, this is the multidimensional maturity the species is waiting to wake up to. That it is okay in the garden of existence for many flowers to grow. That there is no ultimate classification system when it comes to man being the first person who puts the empty page on the table and starts writing. You see, it's as if like the person looks at the universe and it looks at okay, here, let me say it like this. Again, back to that example of a person speaking to the ultimate, to the truth of the world, to God, right? Imagine the person speaks to God and says, God, what do you believe in? and God is there. Do you know, it's as if, imagine a religious person goes to heaven, and there's a moment where it's all good, they're going to heaven, for example, and there the person says, God, I want to know if you're religious. And God's like, I don't know what to tell you, it's in heaven, everything's possible. So religion was a possibility. Every behavior of a human being is like how you're moving the brush of just energy as attention. In the chat section, Raziel shares a quote. Rainer Maria Rilke says, "We are the bees of the invisible. We wildly collect the honey of the visible to store it in the great golden hive of the invisible." Yeah, I've said this, that we are like the surveillance devices of higher dimensions, where our eyes don't just belong to a thought that's just there in the moment. The eyes don't really have an owner, because energy is not individual. It displays itself individually. That means just because, let's say, for example, when you look at how a squirrel moves or how a snake moves, when a squirrel runs, it runs in a way where if you look at its tail, it's running like how a snail moves on the ground. Do you know, it's as if like a sine wave kind of jump. So it's as if like just because the snake can move like a sine wave and the squirrel can jump like a sine wave, it doesn't mean other dimensions are not accessible. That's the thing about nature. Think of how many ways the body can be positioned, how many ways the body can move. Think of how many ways the body has moved as a thought. We have to wake up from the fog of a giant storytelling habitual process of the species. The unknown is really where liberation comes from. I don't know how a school of thought can be 100% certain about something that by the mere saying of it is not in the will of man. For me, it's like it was mind-boggling anytime I see the concept of violence and religion. Let me tell you why. Because religion, in some sense, is a suggestion that everything is God's will moving. That means there's no human beings, there's no animals. All of this is like God's will, right? Man is God's creation. So if everything is God's creation, how can you hurt God's creation? It makes no sense. Do you see what I mean? So it's like when language is, sometimes language is never the language, it is the person, you know? A person can wear a jersey of a soccer team and run in the soccer field in the middle of the game, but it doesn't mean they are part of the team, right? And so sometimes the human mind forgets why it's here. That means it's like, for me, what religion comes down to is that find a comfortable seat of faith, and like a roller coaster ride, watch the world happen beyond your will. Like beyond that, I don't know what religious people can do. They are waiting for truth. Now, spiritual people, they're not waiting. You know, and this depends. I mean, I'm not saying religion is not spiritual. I'm just saying that we are using words for states of mind where the individualism is unconditional and conditional. So in front of my eyes, if I don't eat food, if I don't drink water, if Maslow's physiological hierarchy of needs is not kept, it's as if I'll fade, I'll like evaporate out of existence. So In the outer realms, existence is your teacher. In the inner realms, experience is your teacher. And both teachers are just, I would say, soldiers in a multidimensional battlefield. I would say we are at a time where people are controlled by language. They don't have control over the language. Because they feel there are language, you can't be language and suddenly put the story away. Think of it this way, our civilization's value, to be valuable in the type of civilization 1.0 we have made, is kind of like being active. But how many insights does a person get through moments of silence and stillness? We don't give a value to inactivity, but we don't realize it's a different way of holding the telescope. Different angle. That means it's as if, I don't know, I mean, some stories are heavy, you know, and they're very confusing, I would say. That means it's as if I feel a person can only say they are religious if they have understood the religion, right? But I feel that religions are such complex ideological systems that it's as if like you cannot even know it to even know you're being religious or not. Do you know? I remember I believe this was in Iran in 2016 when I was visiting my family. I've been there for years. And I think it was, I don't know who, I asked the person in a mosque about the soul. And I'm like, in for example, the religion of Islam, what is the soul? What does the truth say about the soul? You know? And the person responded, it's a secret of God. So all this time, mysticism, or even you can say the efforts in magic or whatever, these were all strange to the religious mindset because it was not in man's control. Do you know? So it would be as if like the eyes close, the eyes open, the eyes close, the eyes open, the eyes close, the eyes open. Then the eyes open to how they were never closed. It could be that the mind is an eternal, it is a longer lasting energetic continuity. You know, it's like to be a manifest being is like you're in a swimming pool, but to be a conscious manifest being is like you've brought your head out of water but you're still in the swimming pool. Consciousness is like an access to a dimension that has nothing to do with the water. You know, people are taught what to do, but how many people are taught how to be? And the interesting thing is, it can't be taught. It's just something you notice. You know, imagine like a philosopher was like, wait a minute, if I entertain this good and bad model my whole life, I would endlessly shift emotionally. Think of when a person sees something bad, it brings down their energy. Think about when somebody sees something good, it raises their energy. Now, the person as an energetic being is like, okay, so do I constantly want to be rise and fall like civilizations in my own psyche? You know? And the person has to make a choice, you know? A Taoistic choice. Action through inaction. There's a story of the Zen master back in the day, and this Zen master was in town, and the neighbors were this old couple, and they had a daughter, and the daughter had gone to the market and without the parents knowing gotten pregnant, and the daughter had come back and the mother had noticed and the parents were freaking out, and the daughter really loved the what do you call it, the person at the market she was with, so she wants to protect him, so she throws someone else under the bus. And what she does is she says the father is this neighboring Zen master. You know, the Zen master, the dude who's just chilling. his whole practice in life is to just notice how emptiness is there before fullness. This dude is blamed for being the father. The parents are like, they're like the anger of the father, you know? It's like, okay, this is unacceptable, you know? And they don't have the funds to take care of the child either. They don't have the financial funds. And so what happens is the parents take the child, this young child, like the child gets raised to a certain level where it's realistic for the Zen master that's being blamed to kind of raise it. When the kid is that young, they take the kid, like I don't know, a 7-year-old kid or something, to the Zen master, where there's like Buddha statues and just a very peaceful temple, like, so they pretty much, the kid goes to a temple. Right, so he's born in an angry family, but he's like, the way it's written, the stars for him, he goes to the temple. So the parents leave the Zen master, leave the child there, and they say, how dare you do something like this, you piece of shit, you know, they say slanderous things. The Zen master's just watching. He's watching like eternity at the moment. And they leave the kid there, and they're like, you take care of your own kid, you know? And the angry parents go home, and the daughter's like, okay, I dodged that bullet or something, you know? Something like that. Now, what happens is this Zen master has no bias to the moment. It's like, is looking at the moment and sees the circumstance, sees even the anger that was in that household, and starts teaching this kid meditation and Zen practice, you know, and walks in nature and conversations and whatnot. And so the kid's grown up all to like such age, and the child and the girl, whose child it was, she can't take the guilt. She's like, holy shit, like you know, the guilt is like becoming heavier. It's like weight crushing guilt, right? So she goes and she says it to the parents. She says it was a guy from a market, it wasn't him, I lied. And the parents are like, you have dishonored, you have embarrassed us, you have dishonored our family name. The parents run to the Zen master and they're like, sorry, and they explain the situation. And the Zen master just looks at the kind of like, you know, a sort of Zen goodbye greeting or whatnot, and the child, without any emotional attachment to anything, the Zen master, any sort of father figure or whatever, with a clear mind, the child's like, okay, and the child goes on. goes back to family. And it was a very strange story, right? In my view, there was a sort of rationality to the Zen monk in regards to seeing the family be angry, so something like that, the kid deserved peace. There is something in life that it's so vast that we have no clue what is a clue. I don't know, there's something about peacefulness that it activates possibilities that a bewildered doer. In the Vibhu Gita, there was a saying, I believe it was like, don't roam this realm like a bewildered beast. Like that was the whole point of yoga. It was to truly see what the human potential is, not just what the potential of human appearance is. That potential, the best word, even strangely in a secular sense also, it's like the spirit of art, or like the spirit of the group, or the spirit of the environment. You see, it's the collective motivator, the collective the leading vision of the world. The mind is an invention that has attempted to invent the inventor. This invention has no choice but to repeat the pattern of the image. Isn't it interesting that even in the, you can say, again back to the theological lens, man is made in the image of the Creator, yet when he acts like the Creator, he is punished. Isn't that weird? We are literally, it's like the idea is there, we are like the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm, but when we start behaving like a universal being in a planetary circle, and even in smaller cultural, national circles, it's like after some point it's like we have monopolized truth in accordance to the tip of the iceberg, ignoring all the potentials of what it could be. I believe it was Eric Fromm, this philosopher, or social psychologist. He said this thing that people back in the day, they related to being. Their happiness was based on how they were being more than what they were doing. But the way the world's moved now, it's like what we have is suggesting our happiness. So we are endless consumers for a happiness that in a changing world, if it's conditional, it's like that happiness goes. It's like advancement of conscious vision is the only game in town for now. We were beings with no personality. Then we had a local personality. Then we had a national personality. Now it's time for a global personality. And once there's a global personality, we'll start realizing we are fields of mind. We're honestly just identifying with sound, image, like symbolism, and movement. Life is art. When, even in Greek mythology, there was this idea of chaos is fear first, then order. Chaos doesn't mean evil. Chaos means no meaning. That means anytime something doesn't make sense, it's a chaotic world. You know? When a person is asked a question and they don't know the answer, they're like, what chaos? You know? But the moment they choose, in the middle of this randomity, to linearize, then meaning arises. It's as if just be conscious of your own decisions and you'll notice the painting your lifetime has been drawing. Sometimes I scroll through my own memories. Like literally how a person scrolls over a list of like, you know, quotes online. When I've scrolled through my memories, I've tried to kind of like there's this software called 3D Max. Like 3D Max wonder about the space and dimensions of the memory. That means it's like some memories they're left as a feeling. Some memories they actually have like image. Like if someone says a pineapple and you've never seen a pineapple, you'd be like, but you've seen an apple, only the image of an apple comes in there. And you've seen a pine and you've seen an apple. You know, you see the pine, you see the apple, but you don't see what a pineapple is. But if somebody says apple and you have a memory of an apple, you see that instantly. So that means how much like a camera, your brain, imagine your face is like a camera and the cameraman is inside the camera. Now this cameraman inside this camera, as it's dwelling in the space-time continuum, can suddenly press the record button, which means conscious living. And that record button is pressed when there is effort from within to move what is without. It's as if they said, where does creativity come from? It's like it's non-local. The non-locality of it permits the anything possible real. Alright guys, I need a quick intermission. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, back to it. Really, guys, this is called ontology, the study of becoming. Pretty much that's what I'm doing every day with these talks. I'm wondering about how things are being here as objects, and also as a subject, and also how things are done as an object and as a subject. Right now, it's as if like self-powered programming for like the human objective creature to move. So that means from within we have to change what is in the jurisdiction of our free will. But when it comes to wondering about the destiny of an object and the destiny of a subject, they are destined to endlessly meet and then endlessly break off, like an infinity symbol kind of romance. And it's remarkable. It's like if we had an aerial view from our planet, we would just see, and if 4.5 billion years of evolution was fast forwarded like a movie in a minute, we would just see creatures emerging. Let's say hypothetically, we would see creatures, and not hypothetically, but I'm saying we would just see from the dirt light constantly hitting the planet. Light is like rolling the planet like a ball, you know? Like it's spinning a bowling ball, you know, in one spot, you know. I feel in the future we may treat light like wind, maybe even beyond that as intelligent wind. Light is a wind of intelligence. So I feel any human being should be able to find an advanced platform of communication. So here's an exercise. Anybody who has a piece of paper, draw a square and then draw a giant plus sign that connects to the square and put that inside the square. So draw a square with two lines, a vertical and a horizontal line. We have in this square diagram on the top two squares, the top horizontal line, we have in the horizontal view one column being for the object, one column being for the subject, and on the left side, of this diagram, I'm telling you, for the horizontal rows, right being, B, and then D, being and doing. This is the basic, I would say. I just noticed this, I could do this right now. So our being, if you look at these four squares as if four relationships, there's a relationship with being an object. Then there's a relationship with being a subject. Then there's a relationship with what an object does, you know, after it is. And then there's a relationship with what a subject does. So in this, we find 4 points. Now, I want you to draw a dot in the center of each square, for those who are following this. And then at exactly the center of each square, then I want you to connect those dots together. You'll see inside of this object and subject relationship, there is another diagram of being. That means this is a fractal kind of air tunnel of a diagram. The window of ontology, I'll call this the ontological window. This diagram shall be named the ontological window. May this window truly be opened. We do things to be something. We are being something. We need to be something to do things. The person doesn't have confidence, they say be confident. The person is being inefficient, they're like do something inefficient, do something efficient. You see, it's constantly countering from how an object is being in a snapshot moment and how a subject is moving as the object in a film. And the inseparability of the doer and the being. This is the essence of all mystical practice in whatever language that is trying to own the experience of the universe. I remember seeing a video from Christopher Hitchens, and he was in a park, a YouTube video I saw, like he was in a park and some person comes up to him and says, people don't like you here, leave. And it's a public park. And Christopher Hitchens turns around and says, who the hell are you? You know? He says something like that and the guy leaves, you know? He sends the guy back where he came from. And for a moment I was thinking the same attitude is also required with the ideological imposition from the outer realms. That means we can say if there was no language, we may be incredibly peaceful. Do you know? That means imagine there was no language, but body language was taken too far. That means everybody was walking so, like there was no vocal language, just behavior. Our single movement of our hand could have been a word. Do you know? The simple just positioning of the body could be a meaning. Do you know? So we would be so body language focused, right? But now it's like the language of the mind is ushered in this modern era. So it's like the person maintains stability in their outer realms or finds some sort of stable platform to be stable enough to lift off from, and then the mind's work begins. So after your body's work is done, the mind's work begins to the body, but the mind's work is ever present. That means what this universe is doing, I mean, like it's like what we put it in words, like like if an extraterrestrial asks us, who are you human beings, I would be like, these are stupid aliens. Because they haven't realized, we haven't realized we're not language based. Like we're not just owned by, we're not defined by the language, that there's a raw, direct experiential presence to everyone. I feel a poem calling me, a poetry, something I wrote years ago. This poetry collection is called Starlight Sanctuaries. I wrote it in 2015, and it's like just a set of mystical hymns I wrote. This poem I'm going to read for you is called The Deathless. What gives those alive an opportune life? Are you grateful to your ungratefulness? Do not lie to the self, unborn and absolute. Find the truth that has found you before you are lost. Transcendence and multidimensionality are one cause. Can a mistake be mistakenly taken? Sorry guys, this volume thing was turned down, so I don't think anybody was hearing what I was saying. Oh my god. I'm gonna repeat. I just went into sharing a poem I wrote in 2015 from this poetry collection called Starlight Sanctuaries, and the poem is called The Deathless. What gives those alive an opportune life? Are you grateful to your ungratefulness? Do not lie to the self unborn and absolute. Find the truth that has found you before you are lost. Transcendence and multidimensionality are one cause. Can a mistake be mistakenly taken? The deathless is a suggestion of all life at once. Are some verses versed in the universe beyond all skies? Hold on, guys. Excuse me, guys, too many interruptions this talk. Are some verses versed in the universe beyond all skies? Unkindness is the greatest hindrance. Do not falter when all faults are guests in the great house of the host of this world. Do not redeem the rhythm that was never let go of. An ancient past and a modern future have come to guide the present. All that is the only gift. All that is the only gift. Wow. This is it. The elegance of the deathless is the awareness to eternal life in the subtleties of a spinning world. Know yourself to be all soul. We are all, as human beings, ambassadors of our species. That means, imagine an advanced civilization where we were like, if suddenly one human being traveled or was teleported to another species, they could totally represent the human being, you know? Honor is something you have to start holding at some point. It's something that is held, and when it's lost, that's the tragedy. That's the descension into the animal nature prior to a higher ideal, pulling the attention of the entity beyond its instincts. The next poem we're going to read from Starlight Sanctuaries is Love Beyond Belief. Many paths begin with the first step. Are you ready for a cosmic adventure? Some men look at the moon and see the sun's light. Is moonlight a lie? The sun keeps no secrets in darkness. The emptiness of the void is the untouchable entrance to the heart of all worlds. Many times love has taken my beliefs out of my greedy hands. Before selling fish selfishly, know the ocean and the drop is one. For in the depth of a surface sure of its face, every adventure in the beginning of the end dissolves into sacred faith. Born out of novelty, can a new idea be put in words? Ask your truth for a love beyond belief, to see causality always smiling. The sacred know, the remnants of their knowledge is unknown. As the orb of ignorance was let go, no fortune could ever be told. And the last poem for the Poetry Tunnel. Simplicity's complex steps. What do you need from yourself that is not here? Every form is a preacher of a formless pavement. but do not degrade your feet to the color of your shoes. Many intelligences bloom in one. Every breath is a suggestion of the greater skies within. Is your breath sacred when it is no longer scared? When words sound similar, the silence is worlds apart. Dive into joy and feel the rain that kisses the surface of the ocean in absolute reunion. That's the ego dissolving into the universal being. Give freedom a chance to be free beyond ideology. For when you ask simplicity about complex steps, the answer is always simply here. Find the staircase that requires no feet. Only then will the free have always been free. You know, it's as if, let's say, everybody is worshipping history. And history, we say we make history. History is written. So imagine waking up and the species is worshipping its history. That means it's worshipping sentences written before the person was born, before their experience, conscious, direct experience was active. So we have people looking at treating this life like a book, and we have people treating this life like a notebook, where they notice that the book and the notebook are the same. They both share the blank page. It's that one side, one in one universe, in one parallel universe, the attention is obsessed by the shape. And I would say in another universe, the attention is going to the quality. It's as if, let's say, people now want resources. Let's say money is a resource, okay? And let's say you're an inventor, and you need resources to invent. So let's say you had you found a way to get all the resources you ever wanted. Then what will be left is the invention. The actual, after you got everything you ever wanted, what then? That means the issue with desire is that people are not thinking deeply too far ahead. They should think much further. That means it's as if like the person should wonder, after I've had my desire, what then? You know, that means let's say you see a cake in front of you and you have a desire to just like you know, caveman, just dive just consume this cake. But in your inner realms, you look at the cake, you're just looking at the cake. In your inner realms, you see yourself eating it. Then you see yourself after you have ate it. You see the aftermath of the desire as well. Then not just the desire, how the desire is going to make you feel if it happens. That the inner realm has the ability to see further ahead. Like how we drive a car and through the front window we see, you know, what's ahead before we make a decision. Anyways, the world has to be given freedom from our mind first. That means free the world from your mind, and then your mind, the world will free itself from you. Mystically speaking. That means it's as if when was there never peace? In the inner realms, peace is a potential always there. In the outer realms, it's just as if we didn't notice it. We didn't notice that literally 8 billion human beings, these systems of intelligence can literally change their attention. You know, it's kind of, again, very poetic. We are an expression. We're like, if the human if the nature, if the human being was considered nature's art, you know, it's like it's all self-expressionism. That means it's as if we have to share something to be something, to the domain where doers live, DOERS. I would say in yoga, where they would say the yogi needs to remember the divine memory, you know, their universal memory. What that means is like pretty much when we are born, we forget we were unborn. So when we realize we're unborn, the whole acts database of our like we become a field. When we become a field, this is beyond fear. This means there's no longer love needed as a strategy, and there's no longer fear needed as a dissension. It's a state where geometry has no other owner than the potential of how the unknown moves the known. That means there could be so many dimensions, but the peak of the mountain is unknown, and different known levels have appreciation for the unknown. It's like the world was a story of angels and demons endlessly fighting. Then, this echo of the echo of this, it's as if the advanced communicator suddenly started walking, and then you realize it's as if the angel was in its own room. The demon was in its own room. These are all positions in the space-time continuum. And the occupancy of an object as a subject, it's as if truly observe what your attention as a being deserves. As a being doesn't mean as an identity, as what you're being. We can say that love is an open system, but hate is a completely closed system, and a person who has this ideologically cherry picking between like and dislike, that's that's like the limbo in between. You know, many human beings can accept other people very easily. They can accept even what the meaning of their world is very easy. But if you look at it, how many people it's not easy for them to accept what they are? This means not just what you, not just your atomic existence, but this means how the atomic existence evokes. That means pretty much philosophy is like, who's running this projector that's asking the question. You know, Shirona Marshi, when he says there will come a time where everything one has learned will be forgotten, means that nothing in the outer realms is eternal, can be done eternally. There can be effort, there can be endurance, but nothing goes on forever. So it's in some sense mindful value extraction. It's like we were in the outer realms, a tribe, a hunter-gatherer society, visualize. So now I am noticing a global inner realm hunter-gathering tribe is arising, you know, and the advancement of the communication beyond these two. It's as if like the advanced communicator putting his hand again on the shoulder of the angel, on the shoulder of the demon, and it's like, go rest, both of you. It's like the world became multidimensional before the victory of duality or the defeat in duality could be chosen, you know. If endless love is the unknown, we have known it before we were born. We were it before we were born. In the chat section, there's a quote shared. Shams Tabrizi says, "Be thankful for every thorn that others might throw at you. It is a sign that you will soon be showered in roses." Yeah, I mean, like, can you imagine somebody who actually loves roses gets terrified when they give them a bouquet of roses? It's like, you've killed these plants, you know? There was this sage, he's like, it's like, when we cut a flower and give it, for example, in love stories or whatever, like, it's like, it's a sign of romance for the human dimension, but the flower is like, no! You know, the flower is disconnected from its life source, you know. The concept of, I would say, for example, in the Upanishads, or I believe it was in the Upanishads or the Gitas, there was a sort of archetypal attribution of time being like the devourer. That means time moves past everything. Time is really like the spirit of time has only one command: go forth. You know, time doesn't care about what's moving, it's just forth, go forth. Imagine the galaxies asked humanity, what is the human being? The human being is the species blessed with the spirit of novelty. Wonder is divine. Wonder surpasses power. That means you reach the peak of ideological power, you're like, what next? Wonder. You know, you even reach the bottom of any system, you're like, what next? Wonder. Anytime something happens, there's a sort of a pressure. It's as if, what next? The more pressure that enters the system, you know, the more unknown it becomes its own destiny to itself. For me, speech has become more and more throughout the years paint. Because underneath every word, like, words can be used in endless ways, to be honest, you know, and it's even shocking how slow language is evolving, you know. It's mind-boggling how people stopped adding letters to the alphabet. Like, what is that? You know. You know, I honestly feel every human being, like, this is the task of the human mind, to write one book at least. Every human being should do this. To write one book that they shared what their eyes saw in this roller coaster ride. On this roller coaster ride. Guys, I just noticed it's been 2 hours and 22 minutes. Good thing Plato says time is the moving image of eternity. It's like you ask someone how long is eternity, some person's gonna be like, it's a second, man. You know, someone's like, yeah, eternity is a minute. You know, somebody's like, yeah, eternity is an hour. An hour can feel like eternity. You know. Somebody's like, eternity is immeasurable, you know. I don't know, it's all about the input. What we input into the system suggests its greatness. If we input weakness and expect greatness, it's like you don't put enough change in the vending machine, the machine's gonna be like, bro. I remember seeing a YouTube video of this yogi who had come to the West and started pretty much the Hare Krishna movement, called Shri Prabhupada. And there was a video, literally there was this video where he was literally sitting on this kind of like throne-like altar, and there were people literally blowing him with leaves, you know, in a sort of, out of reverence, not out of like being forced. They were all volunteers. Like for the guy was just, you know, just one person who had come to America. Now, there's a video where they're all in like the Hare Krishna kind of theater, right, in behavior wise and personality display wise, and suddenly one person in the back of the room, as a joke, he says, "Shri Prabhupada, how long does it take to get enlightened?" Like they all like as a joke, right? Shri Prabhupada, in the middle of this theatrical display of like reverence, right, suddenly gets up from his chair and he says, an instant. That means what all this display of, oh, spiritual, enlightened, look at the behavior, oh my God, you know, the truth is an instant. It has to be, if you want it to be unconditional. That means the person's like, all right, if it's got to be truth, it has to be right here, right now. And guess what? There's two things right here, right now. If your eyes are open, the material realm. If you close your eyes, an invisible viewer in a pitch black room, and there is subtle, like waves on an ocean shore, you can say echoes of the image of what the eyes saw. That means the eyes are taking, imagine if the light enters and the brain has a processing time, and the processing time of the brain is a bit slower than actually the instantaneity of light. So when light stops, the brain hasn't processed, the eyes are closed yet. You know, so when the eyes close, the brain hasn't processed, the eyes are closed yet, and therefore there is an echo. There is an echo of like a bit of, it is a strange echo that happens there. You know, something gets in from the outer realms into the inner realm, and the outer realm echoes into the inner realm. In that, I think, that a tiny second of processing. Tiny seconds of processing, maybe nanoseconds. So if you closed your eyes and you're like, what is this? Like, how am I knowing I'm knowing? Doesn't get more mystical than that, you know? they asked the person asked, what is truth? And they were like, it's the unknown. And the person's like, how do I know the unknown? Do I have to do a practice? Is there a secret to it? How do I know the unknown? And the person's like, no, there's no, you don't have to be a consumer for enlightenment. You don't have to consume enlightenment. You just have to wonder how you know. And you'll at some point notice how an experiential attention is I don't want to say surrounded, but is an experiential space, a space that is being experienced. Everything's in it. So I have noticed my body, all that I perceive as myself as an object, to be in a space where my mind is like the candle's glow, like awareness. So awareness and space for me have become interchangeable. They're inseparable, I would say. So you can say awareness is intelligence plus space, is intelligent space. So the mind is an intelligent space, the body is moving in it. Now, between the body and this mind, there is what some philosophers have called qualia. 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 And this means that domain of that part of perception where it's like if your eyes are closed, you still see something. That seeing to the direct experiencer is the qualia. That's what I'm saying is the inner realms. That means right now my voice, my memories, what I visualize, my dreams, my ambitions, everybody's dreams and ambitions, they are on a subjective level. The embodiment. It's as if an idea has possessed atoms. It's like it doesn't get more next level than that. I don't know, what can I say? What is known to us, we have control over. What is unknown to us, we don't have control over. Therefore, interpretation of the unknown is a waste of energy. Sorry, not interpretation of the unknown. Fear, and a low energy interpretation of the unknown is unnecessary. That means it's like many people, it might be easy for them to forgive others. For example, let's say even in parent psychology, the parent can instantly forgive the child, but can't. There's moments where if the parent has made a mistake and the parent can't forgive him or herself, And so we need an all-inclusive forgiveness, believe it or not. And forgiveness really means release. That's it. You release the world from how it was existing to you. Because you deserve advancement, and so does the world. That means it's like the karma of the phenomena was something you touched. I firmly believe in this idea that karma comes from touching the wrong thing. Literally, you're in a museum, you touch a painting, and the person's like, hey! The security, like 4 security guards run, to just tell you not to touch the painting. You're like, well, such public servants, So that's the thing. The mystic is walking in a museum of conception, endlessly reanimating from between consciousness and unconsciousness. And honestly, what happens? Either human beings use their free will to build something on this planet, or the planet builds over them. You know, the planet's like, you're wasting all of our time, humanity, and it's like, oh my god, is that like 12 earthquakes at the same time? You know? So so it becomes a point where man is like, hey, nature, sorry for disturbing you. Just let us get our act together. And we're like, yo, advance montage. Like, you know, it's like one of these kind of situations, you know, shamanic, like, you know. For me, I can't tell you communication, just the idea, the philosophical implication of that idea, I would say it saved my life from my own judgment, you know. This is, I find, the case that a person who, it's very easy for them to break the idea of themselves in a non-pleasant way. That means you can say what is happening when a person has stress, what is happening when a person is in a state of mind where there is some sort of emotional turbulence, right? So how does the pilot out of the way the state of mind is? The thing is that if you are unconsciously moving, you will never know what you're doing. So the person cannot trust this universe, this universal activity, until they can find a simple, instantaneous, conscious moment of trust. That means you gotta trust the ground when you walk on it, you know. The biggest reason why there is, I would say, I saw in a statistic, this global statistic, like depression around the world is like increasing, and I'm like, first of all, who's doing this massive statistic? Like, I think depressed people don't like to talk a lot, so why would they? How would the statistic be? Like, they would be too depressed to do the statistic, you know? But but let's say if depression is arising, what does that mean? That means the inner realms are finding it more complex to live in the outer realms. That's what it means. It means that in a tug of war between the inner realms and the outer realms, the inner realms are being pulled by, being defined by the outer realms. You know, I'll tell you, some people wake up from let me fly beyond this cloud. I don't know. Man is not anything because he can be anything. Man is not nothing because he's here. The illusion can't be the illusion because it needs the truth as a contrast to know it's an illusion. And I am implementing a very uncommon strategy. Okay, yogic and mystical thought. First I gotta explain the spectrum. Imagine there is a spectrum of silence, like literally we have the color spectrum where the colors change and the frequency changes. So imagine we draw a horizontal line. One side is silence, one side is sound, okay, noise. from a lens of communication, the yogis and the sages, they went towards the experiential route. So communication was, you can say, pure silence. Silence and stillness were the portals to nirvana. Observation as silence and stillness. Now I'm saying, in this spectrum where one side is silence and the other side is communication, like advanced communication, I thought of this notion that communication, like think of it this way, you can notice how you are the individual and the collective are inseparable by being still and silent and doing nothing, but you can also do it if you if you max out the communication. If you max out, by increasing the speed of our communication, we cannot get caught in snapshot images of language and belief systems. What can I say? Temporary dreams inside eternal awakenings. By advancing communication, I feel we will multidimensionally become too multidimensional silent. We will come to the silence of infinity. But by going towards just the absence of communication through outer realm silence and stillness, we, through a singular lens, find that sort of nirvana, salvation. So we can say that enlightenment is not just for a singular dimensional being, like a multidimensional being, it can apply, but enlightenment for the multidimensional being is the whole moment. Enlightenment for, it's as if one side, the individual is realizing it's a collective, the other side, it already knows it's a collective, so it lives a fearless individual life. And this is, the power of this really comes down to the word love, right? But love has descended into cultural connotation. So now it's something where it's from a sort of love with the universal activity. A person, imagine falling in love with how the universe is happening as one massive event, you know. And then a person, like, you know, it's pretty much, we changed the universe into big and the small. Ever since these two words came into existence, the micro and the macro, literally everything can have a micro and macro dimension. That means a person can have a significant value to how just they see themselves, but they can also have a value to how something, the macro and the macrocosmic perspective, how it is seen. Like that. Anyways, thanks for listening, and if hope is a projection in the void, anything can be written on the empty piece of paper. Eventually we will realize the greatest work of the intellect is art, but art that hasn't forgotten its beginning. Anyways guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful.